When your ex moves on quickly, it can feel like a dagger to your heart. Because not only are you grieving the loss of the relationship and the loss of this person, but now your mind can very quickly spiral into thoughts like, was what we had real? He must not have ever loved me, or I must have meant nothing to him. So are these thoughts true? Is that what it really means when an ex moves on quickly, that they never really loved you? Absolutely not. I'm going to share my story here with you today. I moved on very quickly when I separated from my ex-husband, and I was deeply in love, like fully in love. Like I loved this person with everything that I had, every little bit of my heart and soul. I was with him for almost 15 years. I really didn't want to leave, but I had no choice. My partner at the time, my husband, had made it very clear to me with his words and his actions that he was never going to be able to meet my very basic needs that I was looking for in a relationship. So I had to leave, but I was still very much in love. And I'd been working really hard on myself to heal and to love myself. And so I loved myself enough at that point to realize that I could get my needs met elsewhere. I didn't have to stay in this very painful, unfulfilling dynamic. And I moved on quickly because I actually thought that I was ready at that time. The truth, the deeper truth that was going on within me was I really didn't want to go through that full-out grieving process of being on my own for a while and letting go of my ex-husband. But at the time, I didn't know that. And so I thought, oh, you know what? I'm ready. So that was why I moved on very quickly. I thought I was ready. I hadn't been getting my needs met for a very long time, and I was pretty desperate to have those needs met. So why does our mind doubt the love that our partners had for us when they move on quickly after a breakup? What's really going on here? The reason we ask this question is because of our ego. We can call our ego the wounded inner child. There's a lot of different names for it, but basically it's the part of us that is wounded, that still is holding on to stuff from the past. And our ego has this story of the only way that this person could prove that they really loved me would be to stay single forever, to be grieving forever, to be always pining away for me, to essentially just be forever suffering. They would always be trying to get me back. They would be constantly begging for me to return. That would be the only way to prove that this person really loved me. Now, when I say it like that, when I put it out there, it can seem kind of silly, right? It can seem kind of crazy. But this is the story that our ego is telling us. It's almost like a little kid throwing a tantrum. This is what I want. This is what has to happen. Our ego wants the other person to suffer forever, essentially. Now, I'm not sharing this so that you can judge yourself if this is happening to you. No judgment here. This happens to all of us. This is just to explain what's going on here so that we can see what's really happening. What's really going on here is when we are in pain, our minds or our egos are very often telling us a certain story about that pain. And so when our ex moves on quickly, the story that it tells us to explain the pain is that, well, they must have never really loved us. But again, that's not true. Like I shared just before, the ego wants the other person to be in pain, and it wants the other person to suffer, and it wants them to never be with anyone else to prove that they loved us. And again, we have seen here, that's not realistic. That doesn't make sense. Because here's the truth. If someone said that they loved you while they were with you, then they loved you. What they do after you break up has nothing to do with how they felt about you in the relationship. So again, if they told you during that relationship that they loved you, and it felt like they really did, then they did. Believe that. Everyone is doing the best they can after a breakup. Everyone has coping mechanisms to deal with that pain and that separation after a relationship ends. Some coping mechanisms are healthy, others not so much. And in most cases, we can put moving on very quickly into the category of not the best coping mechanism. But a lot of us do it. Again, I did it. Moving on quickly, again, we can put it in that category of an unhealthy coping mechanism, but sometimes that's all we know. And maybe that's going on with your ex. Maybe when your ex moved on quickly, he just didn't have any other way to deal with the pain. Or maybe like me, he thinks, yeah, you know what, I'm ready. But it doesn't mean that they didn't love you when they were with you. And just maybe this person misses you so much that the only way that they can think of to deal with that pain is to try to replace you, to try to find someone else to soothe that loneliness and that missing you. That might be what's going on here. Now, of course, it's possible that your ex didn't really love you. Like maybe they never said it when you were together, or maybe they were narcissistic, and what we think of as love is very different than what they are experiencing. That's a different story. But moving on quickly doesn't automatically mean that they didn't love you or that they were a narcissistic person. Narcissists do move on quickly, but so do a lot of other people. So we can't use moving on quickly to say whether or not someone was narcissistic and they didn't love you. We would have to look at so many other different aspects of the relationship. So again, just because someone moves on quickly doesn't mean that they didn't love you. And I do know that me saying this is not going to take the pain away. And that's the point. That's what I'm really saying here. Like the stories that your mind is telling you that my ex didn't love me. It's not because they didn't actually love you. It's a result of the pain. Again, it's your mind trying to explain what it's going through. But those thoughts, those stories, they aren't true. If you need some help sorting all this out, because I know it can get so confusing, I'm here, you can work with me. Click on the link in the description to see the different programs that I offer. Now, if you want to learn how to get your confidence back after a breakup, check out this video here and click here to subscribe. I come out with new videos every single week for breaking the cycle of toxic relationships, healing, loving yourself, and finding healthy love.